Great Smoky Mountains TV on the road again. We're here with H.E.R.E. Housing Equity, Resources and Education. Joining me is Destry Leger. And Destry, you got started in 2018 with this. Please explain. You help find housing for people that are homeless or in danger of being homeless.
Right. So we did start in 2018. I live here in Jackson County, and I was working in Haywood County doing domestic violence homeless services, and we just knew that there was a gap in services in Jackson, and the county was looking to address it. And there had also been a lot of grassroots effort to try to do so before. So we decided just formally start something up. So we were designated the homeless services provider for Jackson County in 2019, and in September of 2019 was when we went fully operational. So this is our first year, officially providing services, and we help all the way from doing what we call street outreach, which is reaching out to people in the community who are living unsheltered and providing services where they're at. Then when we have shelter availability, which is in the winter months to keep people from freezing, we help them in that situation. And then the ultimate goal is to move everybody into their own form of permanent housing, whether that's with continued assistance or living independently. And then we continue providing case management and tenant and landlord mediation to make sure that the housing placements we make are successful and that the arrangement works for everybody.
How big of a problem is homelessness in this area?
So it's bigger than people think, because since we're not a place like Asheville or Raleigh or a big urban area where you can walk down a block and see 5 or so homeless people, they assume the problem's not there because it's not as visible. But what we have that I've seen here in Jackson County that's different than other neighboring counties, because being a rural area, you see a lot of people sleeping in tents, a lot of people who camp out at campsites seasonally, even through the winter too. But what we have here that's different is that we have a lot of landowners that are willing to let people stay on their land. So as other counties, so other counties you can kind of keep up with them because they're kind of shuffling around. Whereas in Jackson County, we have people who will let them stay on the property and not bother them, not take down their sites or anything. So it's a good thing that that generosity is there, but it does make it a little harder for us to find everybody.
So you had a background in domestic violence and prevention and helping people with it. Does that cause a homelessness problem?
So domestic violence is actually one of the main causes for homelessness for women and children. Domestic violence, moving past just the physical portion of it, which is what people mostly talk about, usually entails a lot of control around financial abuse, accessing their own services or having their own jobs or money. And so essentially when a lot of people leave that situation, they not only have no savings of their own, but a lot of times they don't have any developed skills. It's been a long time since they've been in the workforce. So that can be housing can be a huge barrier to domestic violence. Or domestic violence is a huge barrier to housing. One thing that I did see when I was in the shelter was the lack of affordable housing in place for people to move into was definitely a deterrent towards their independence, and a lot of people went back. They would stay in the shelter for 60 days, and if they couldn't find a job that paid enough to pay for housing, sometimes it just gets too much and they say, at least before I had a place to stay. So it's all very interwoven and interconnected.
Are you seeing a positive impact with what you're doing?
Absolutely. It's we do have days where it's a little overwhelming. It's kind of like that term, drinking from a fire hose. We have just a lot of need, but we do try to take moments to think about the good work that we are doing. We're providing people with access to health care who normally wouldn't, with access to substance use services, getting their prescriptions. We've taken people to the free dental clinic and cashiers who normally wouldn't have access to that.
Great.
And they haven't had dental work in years. On top of housing people, we have one family, actually our first family that we started with in June. So we started officially in September, but I've been working with them since June, living outdoors. They eventually moved into our shelter program when it opened. we got them into a housing situation that was not a good fit, so we had to move them back out and then refine housing again. So she is actually having a baby in the beginning of March, and she just got set up at an apartment last month.
So you help with rental assistance?
Yes. Well, yes, for qualifying people.
For qualifying people.
Right. So if the person's pending homelessness, as in they're going to be homeless in 14 days without some form of assistance, that qualifies under some of our programming. And then we also do help with what's called rapid rehousing. So for people who are literally homeless and their biggest barrier is saving up their first month, last month deposit, maybe they have utility arrears, they qualify for that program. But that's a state program, so it's a pretty strenuous, a lot of boxes to check.
Yeah.
But it's a great service to people who can access it.
Very good. Now, this is very important. How can someone get in touch with you?
So we have a number of different ways people can get in touch, especially because communication reliability is a huge problem with everybody out here, you know, landlines and reception, but especially for our population. So we have a main phone number that can be called. It's 828-477-4946. And our office hours are 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. If you are experiencing an unsheltered emergency in Jackson County after those hours, you can contact Dispatch 911 directly and ask for the homeless coordinator, and they will contact the person on call.
Good.
And we will, you know, so we can get people out of dangerous elements if that's the case. We also have a Facebook. It's Facebook/H.E.R.E, which we can be directly messaged through, which is really good for people whose phones don't have minutes, and so they still have access to Wi-Fi. And
that again is Facebook-H.E.R.E.
Facebook/H.E.R.E.
Okay, that's important. People
Right.
have to remember that. The phone number again, the main number again, if we could get that.
828-477-4946. And then our contact information is available at hereinjacksoncounty.org.
Okay, and you're expanding, obviously. In the future, do you see yourself going into a big venue and having a lot more people involved?
Yes. Well, one of our main goals is to definitely establish a brick and mortar shelter.
Right.
My hope is that we can go from the ground up and really build it best practices, have some trauma-informed spaces in there so that it's a place that people are treated with dignity, and it's not quite the bunk beds in one big room that we've tend to think about with shelters, but also having spaces that other community resources can come to the location. So moving around in Jackson County when you don't have transportation is a big barrier to getting things done, to getting income, your assistance, getting to us. And so having people being able to come to that location to provide those services, I think would be a big help. So that's my big scheme, but realistically, we're going to have to go with what we get. So if it's know renovating something existing, we'll work with what we have. But
well, I want to thank you for being on Great Smoky Mountains TV today, Destry. Thank you very much. Once again, this is H.E.R.E, and if you need to get in touch with her, please do.
Thank you.